you have displayed the banner bearing the words Hong Kong is not China.
I'm in a city that has more Rolls Royces per person than any other city in the world. A city that has more skyscrapers than anywhere in the world. A city with the longest escalator system in the world. A city that is one of the most populated in the world. And a city that has one of the most efficient subway systems in the world, where 99.9% of the departures are on time. And it's a city that doesn't really belong to any country. It's a special administrative region located in the East China Sea. My name is Palle Bo. I'm now in Hong Kong, and this is the Radio Vagabond podcast. Before I arrived to the airport in Hong Kong, I planned to take a taxi to the center of the city, even though I knew that it was going to be more expensive than a bus or a train. But I imagined that I would arrive to a confusing and busy airport with a bunch of Chinese signs. But after getting here, I realized that it was just an unfair prejudice. It was both manageable, modern, and well-signed, both in Chinese and English. So I decided that I might as well take the bus to the city. I wasn't in a hurry, and it seemed pretty easy to do. And it was absolutely no troubles getting to the center. I live in the southern part of the mainland in an area called Tsim Sha Tsui. I chose to stay in a room with one of the many foreigners who live in the city. His name is Andre, and he's from Luxembourg. The cost per square meter or square feet in Hong Kong are some of the highest in the world, so Andre uses every square inch to the fullest. The apartment is small, but it's much more than just a place for him to stay. In addition to the small kitchen you step into when you open the door on the 6th floor, there's also a room that's been used for small yoga classes and pole dancing lessons. It has a green screen for video recording, and it's been used for different networking events he sometimes hosts. He shares the place with a Chinese girl who doesn't live here, but shows up sometimes to test out new cake recipes. There's a small bathroom and 2 smaller rooms where one of them is rented out on Airbnb. Andre spends most of his time working on his online business in his office. That's also his bedroom. The room is so small that his desk is under his loft bed. Andre keeps himself busy. But despite this, he spends about 3 hours with me when I arrive. I feel that I'm much more than just a way to make a few extra bucks. He has a genuine interest in meeting new people. First we sit in the kitchen and talk for a long time. He gets out a bunch of brochures about Hong Kong and tells me which things I have to see while I'm here. He also spreads out a map in the kitchen, and he draws and tells stories. And then we go for a longer walk in the area. Here he again gives me some advice on where to go, where to eat, and where definitely not to eat. Then we enter a building with different eating places. We get a great meal for almost no money. It's one of those places hidden from outsiders. Even the way we order is different. And it definitely doesn't hurt if you speak a few words in Chinese. My first impression of the city center of Hong Kong is exactly what I expected. A bunch of flashing neon signs with Chinese characters, a big screen playing commercials with loud sound, and then I meet a lot of vendors. Hong Kong has around 7 million inhabitants and 2 official languages, Chinese and English. This comes from the fact that Hong Kong was a British colony from 1841 to 1997, where it was handed back to China. Today they have limited autonomy under the Chinese government. There was in fact made an agreement with China that they were not allowed to interfere, that Hong Kong would be allowed to maintain the right to keep its capitalistic economy, its government and all civil rights for at least 50 years. But many of the locals I speak to tells me that there are a lot of interference from Beijing happening. An example was when the government in Beijing wanted to change the electoral laws in Hong Kong so that Hong Kong citizens only could vote for candidates that have been approved in advance by the government in Beijing. This led to the demonstrations in Hong Kong in 2014, also called the Umbrella Movement and the Umbrella Revolution.
Well, that's new. Now I see they have like gates put up, so you cannot...
Andre offers to spend the Sunday with me. He often does these networking events where he invites other like-minded people to spend the day together. It's not something that he gets paid for. He only does it because it's fun and because he himself likes to get to know new people. This Sunday, however, there were only one person joining us. A mainland Chinese girl named Yan Pingchuk. She lives and works in the city. Andre wanted to show me a part of the Hong Kong island which is unique on a Sunday. It's the day that many Filipinos and Indonesians have their day off and meet in each their own part of Hong Kong island. In the first area we come to, there are hundreds, perhaps even thousands of Filipino girls who sit on widespread cardboard boxes, having fun, talking and eating. Andreas says it's like stepping into the Hitchcock movie Birds because of the many girls with long black hair. The many Filipino girls meet in the area around the HSBC Bank, which is a skyscraper that is almost hovering. It's built on top of pillars so you can walk underneath it.
So Andre, we just passed item 1 on the list, Hitchcock's Birds. Well, I see what you mean. A lot of Filipinos and they're just hanging out there, sitting on cardboard boxes and having a nice Sunday, their day off, and playing cards and chatting.
Yes, and as you can see, we're now standing under the HSBC building.
The hovering bank.
It's like floating above us. If you look up, you see the whole thing. And this place under the bank used to be open for public. Theoretically it still is, but they have converted it into a pseudo-museum and erected gates, so now you can only walk through but not sit here anymore. It actually didn't come because of all the Filipinos outside, but a few years ago it was Occupy Central who erected an entire village in this area. They had like library, kitchen, bathroom, everything here. And they were staying here for like more than half a year, and the bank could not kick them out, even it appears to be like the bank property, because the bank has an agreement with the government that this public space has to remain public. So they cannot kick them out once they are here.
But it's actually a skyscraper on pillars.
It is. It's like in Venice also. Imagine just something that doesn't touch the ground.
Yeah. But can you put a few more words on the Filipinos outside?
Well, there are a lot in Hong Kong. They used to be the majority of the domestic helpers, way over 100k. I'm not sure if now the Indonesians, they are number 1, but most of them have the day off on Sunday, which means it's the only day that they can gather, trading, shopping, shipping stuff home. So they all gather at the same place. And in Hong Kong, you have like one spot for the Filipinos, which is in Central, Indonesians in Victoria Park, which is another place we might go. The Thai people, they are at the old Kai Tak Airport district, so that's why there are so many in one particular place.
And then we continue through a heavy trafficked area where the Indonesians meet on Sundays. They sit on stairs, sidewalks and in a giant park, just having a good time together and enjoying their day off. Andre calls this Indo Town.
So what we just was passing in a highly trafficked area, those were Indonesians.
Yeah, this is Indo Town. This is Indonesia on a Sunday. Everything you see or hear, you buy, you smell, everything is literally Indonesia.
In what way is it different than the Filipino part that we passed earlier?
Well, in principle it's the same. They all gather on a Sunday and so on and so forth. But they do have a lot of cultural differences. What they do, how, it's difficult to explain if you don't see it. Everything from what activities they do, what they dress.
We jump on a tram, a tall, narrow streetcar that reminds me of the night bus from Harry Potter. All I'm missing is Stan Shunpike to greet us. And after that we took a normal bus for about half an hour to 45 minutes to the southern part of the island. I have to say I was surprised to see that Hong Kong also offers nature, mountains and beaches, and not just skyscrapers and a busy street life. We're on the way to the beach, but first we arrive to an area with some cliffs. This is Andre's secret area. not many tourists find their way here.
So Andre, now we're at the beach, and no, we're not at the beach. Now we're
Cliffhangers.
Well, this is still a cliffhanger. No, now we're on some cliffs.
Now we're on cliffs facing the open ocean, and great place for a picnic. Yeah. Just don't tell the audience where exactly this is located.
No, we won't tell exactly where it is because it's like a secret hiding spot. And this is also Hong Kong. I wasn't expecting this.
Well, Hong Kong actually has 70% of the land that cannot be built on, which is either natural or even parks that are, how you call that, a natural reserve. Yeah. People do not know that when they just see the sky rise and the skyscrapers and everything.
Yeah, they think Hong Kong and they see a skyline, but it's so much more.
You have to see it to believe, I would say. Yeah. Other than that...
But we're not giving too much away by saying we're on the south side of the Hong Kong island. Is that too much? Am I giving away too much here?
No, that's all right, because we are not actually on the south side. Okay. we are on the southerly side, but is it east or west? That's the question.
When we were in Hong Kong, first we passed the place that you call Hitchcock's Bird, with a lot of Filipinos hanging out on the Sunday. And then we went to the Indonesian park, Victoria Park, where there were a lot of Indonesians hanging around. And you whispered in my ear that there's something, there's a cultural difference, and you would tell me later when there were no one to listen. Now we're so secluded, you can tell me.
Okay. So, well, I'm not really sure if they like to hear that, but it's what it is. Like if you go to Victoria Park, you see there are like thousands and thousands of Indonesians, and they're all very religious and all wrapping up their hat and everything. Although what makes me wonder is why do I not see them Monday to Saturday like that? Obvious guess would be that the employer doesn't like that, so it's more like we are Sunday religious. That's one of the observations. The other one is you see a lot more, how should I say that politely and nicely and politically correct, but if you go to the Philippine side in Central, a lot of them, no, actually all of them, they appear more, let's say, what you are used to see from people. But if you go to the indoor side, there are a lot of, they are all girls, but they all, not all, but a lot of them act like couples, where actually one is always looking like the guy. And that is something that surprises me, because they are on one side so strongly religious and everything, on the other side they are so extreme as well, versus the Filipinos, which are more balanced. A few years ago there was, I don't know if it was a fad or was it actually a real mental issue. If you would go to the indoor side, you would see on a Sunday that they would all carry dolls around, and they would take them like they would be their own real kids. Now, there were many theories. Are they doing that for compensation because they have kids at home, they only see a week a year? Or is it just like a fashion fad? Like you might have noticed that many of them, they dress up like rappers 20 years ago in the US. So they are more extreme in expressing whatever they want to express, versus the Philippines, where you almost feel bored when you just look around in terms of the exotic things that you see there. So there are differences like that, but you cannot really ask them about that.
You should try.
Well, I've been talking to Filipinos about this, and I mean local ones that work in Hong Kong, and they agree on that, but also don't really know who acts like the way they do. But it's an interesting observation, because I never see anybody from Monday to Saturday the way they appear on a Sunday. So of course it's a day off, they can do what they want, but it also points a darker light on the Hong Kong employers, who already are often like slave owners. They do not allow the domestic helper, or locally called the maid, or almost like a slave, they don't allow them any freedom at all. Many are happy if they can actually just get out on a Sunday.
The waves are crashing against the rocks we're sitting on and enjoying the sun. and the small group is a cool guy from Luxembourg, a mainland Chinese girl, and a traveling radio vagabond from Denmark. Then we go through a small town with some small interesting houses and then move on to the beach where we spend a long time swimming around. The water is warm and all in all it's amazing. In the evening we were sitting in a restaurant and while we were eating we can see on the TV in the background that there are violent demonstrations and clashes with the police in the streets that we were walking around in earlier that day. There were around 13,000 demonstrators when it was at the highest, and the police were threatening to shoot. Several people were arrested and the police used pepper spray against the protesters. The trouble was about two young, newly elected parliament members, Sixtus Leung and Yao Wai-ching, who made enemies in Beijing. They are for an independent Hong Kong, and they made a scandal in the inauguration. I'm watching a YouTube clip right now.
As a member
I see the young man, Sixtus Leung, at the stand for his inauguration. He's a very young, skinny guy with glasses. Listen to what happens here. This is where he has to declare his allegiance to China.
Keeping guard over the interests of the Hong Kong nations.
He changes the word China to the Hong Kong nation.
Mr. Sixtus Leung, you have changed the wording of the oath.
The older official guy standing next to him is a bit confused.
I don't have the authority to administer the oath for you. Please stick to the legislative council.
He tells him to say it again or return to his seat.
Mr. Leung, please go back to your seat. I am quite finished.
But Sixtus has the nerve to say that he's not quite finished and takes out a flag that reads, "Hong Kong is not China." He drapes it around his shoulders. This time he keeps his fingers crossed in front of his chest while he reads. And he says China instead of China.
Republic of China.
He later said that it was because his English is not perfect.
Region of the People Republic of China.
But he's clearly crossing his fingers as if to say, I don't really mean this.
Mr. Sixtus Leung, I noticed that you have displayed the banner bearing the words Hong Kong is not China.
Again, the official gentleman administrating the inauguration is very confused and asks him to sit down.
Please return to your seat.
Then Yang Wai-ching comes to the stand, and she takes the same flag and spreads it out visually in front of her on the table for the world to see. Hong Kong is not China. As you can imagine, all this made Beijing furious, and they refused the two to take seat in the parliament. And this has led to all the demonstrations this Sunday. Hong Kong is in many ways an exciting place, a vibrant city where a lot of exciting and interesting things are happening. It's a multicultural place that is both Chinese and very international at the same time.
So, it's been a real pleasure, and I have a feeling that we'll meet again.
Well, you're really just waiting.
I really enjoyed my time here, but now I have to move on. I'm getting on a boat, a short trip over to the other city that in many ways are much like Hong Kong. After being a Portuguese colony, this city was also handed back to the People's Republic of China in 1999, only about 2 years after Hong Kong. Again, according to the principle of one country, two systems. I'm going to Macau, and I'm so looking forward to that. My name is Palle Bo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya!